Well, welcome everybody once again to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Femi Diaries, and I'm so appreciative that you're on with us today. And I have another one of my guests as I build this series called Life Lessons. I have a guest of mine, a very good friend of mine, and we're going to be having a conversation today in this series. Again, just to kind of give you a little background of the series, I had in the recent past a series I did called 7 Most Important Things in Life. And in that series, I was teaching on 7 very important areas of our lives. During that series, we went into a whole lot of different areas of our life that it's very, very kind of important for us to pay attention to. And if you haven't seen that series yet, I would encourage you to go back on my YouTube page and check it out. Again, if you haven't subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, my YouTube channel again is Femi Diaries. I encourage you to do so. This channel is all about positive, uplifting content that we can use on a daily basis. Again, I'm so excited today. I have another one of my friends who is joining me today on this broadcast, and his name is Damola, but I'll be calling him Dami because that's kind of all of us are friends. We call him Dami. So just to jump into it right away, Dami, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well, Femi. It's a pleasure to be on your platform. So thanks for inviting me. It's a great day here. We've had quite some good weather in the last recent days, so I'm quite upbeat.
Yeah.
And good to connect with you once again.
Yes. Now, man, I could say so much about this friend of mine. When you talk about people who have really affected my life in a very positive way, this is one of those men. Because, we go back a long way. We went to school together. And I remember back in those days, even before I really knew much about what it meant to be a friend, this man right here was a good friend to me. And, this series, out of this series, one of the pillars that we'll be talking about in this series is called social relationships. And, I'm really going to kind of put my friend on the spot today because I've seen him develop a lot of relationships over the years. And I've seen him being faithful to those relationships. And it's just a joy for me to have a man like this on, someone who really builds quality relationships and who is there like a brother. And I really do see him like a brother. There were so many times in the past, we all have different situations in our lives we go through. This was a man that stood by me and was really of great encouragement to me. So, Dami, back then, your faithfulness, just the encouragement you were to me in different kind of situations. And it's just a joy to have you on this platform today.
Thank you once again, Femi. I think there's a lot of flattery in those words that you just shared. It's a pleasure. We have, we like you mentioned, we've been friends from a long, long time. And, what I love about old friendships is that they are very evergreen, they're like the records and music that you listen to. They never run out of fashion. They never, go out of tune. You just continue to play them and discover new meaning. In different seasons of life. So, yeah.
All right. So, Dami, let's jump this up today. I want you to just kind of tell my viewers, my audience on this channel, a little bit about yourself so that they can kind of get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. Thank you. So my full name is Ade Damola Abiola, and, but Damola Abiola for short. And like Femi mentioned, a lot of my friends call me Dami. I had another old pseudonym, but I don't use that anymore. I'm sure Femi knows why. That's a long time ago. Some friends still call me that from time to time. I live in Ontario, in Toronto, Canada. Actually, more.
Yeah, he's my neighbor here.
Yeah, more in the greater Toronto area here. In terms of I'm a professional and I work in the area of finance. I've got 2 wonderful daughters. Who keep me busy and challenged.
And they're grown now.
And I also remind everyone that I've always been outnumbered all my life because, like Femi, I only have sisters. And
Yeah,
now I only have daughters. So
I know.
I
And man,
think,
that's a lot of love.
yeah, it's a lot of love. And, you know, I'm someone with a lot of varied interest. You know, even though I work in a very structured area, I'm very creative. You know,
Yeah,
and when I talk about being creative, you know, I love playing around with, you know, around in the areas of entrepreneurship, you know, developing business
yeah,
models, thinking about, you know, what the next thing that one could do is. And in the course of my life's journey, I've started a number of businesses, some of which have taken me
yeah.
internationally, and you know, and I continue to dabble and play around with things here and there. So that's really my short summary.
Yeah, that's awesome, Dami. And you talking about business, I guess we will hit that too before we get off this broadcast today. But so Dami, one of the reasons why I really wanted to come onto this platform was, you know, one, they said relationships are the spice of life, and relationships are so important. And we have different kind of relationships. You know, we have uh, our nuclear families, we have relationship with our siblings, we have relationship with friends. And, you know, I realized that relationship with friends has a very crucial part to play in our lives. And, you know, you are able to build one another, you're able to help one another. Your blind spots, the other person can see. You know, I wanted you to really kind of talk, because I've known you over the years to be someone who has built very, very good relationships. And when I look at the kind of even in situations I've been in over the years, I've seen situations that were potential opportunities to have good relationships with people, but many times, a lot for many reasons that I'm sure you will maybe help us with today, people do not want to delve deeper into very genuine, committed relationships. So we want to start today by really talking about friendships, especially in terms of men. I want you to kind of talk to us a little bit about how you've been able to build relationships over the years. Again, like I said, I know you have a lot of relationships like that that you've kept for a long time, and they're very good relationships. I want you to talk to us a little bit about that. How has that looked for you, and what has really been the secret behind that? And what role have they really played in your life?
Hmm. That's a very deep question, Femi, and I do hope I can do some justice to it. We're probably just going to really scratch the surface, but hopefully it is beneficial to
Yeah.
people. Um, you know, friendships and relationships, you know, either they are an essential tool in our life's journey that can either mar or make you, and that is
Mm,
why they are so important. I think that one of the things that, you know, I have done or that has helped me in life is that I have been very intentional about building
yeah,
relationships. I think
yeah,
intentionality is really a key factor.
yeah.
Many times people stumble into relationships, but
Mm,
what may differentiate me in some way or form may be the fact that I am very intentional.
mm,
I meet people or come across people in my life's journey, and I, you know, when I engage with them, in the past, I used to say that I am very exploitative. I used to be very exploitative in my relationships, but
mm.
exploitative not from the perspective of really doing a disadvantage to the individual, but
Right.
actually taking and borrowing something from their lives to enrich
Mm,
my own life
yeah.
journey. And so typically when I meet people and I engage with them, you know, as I assess, I'm actually looking for areas of weaknesses in my life where I believe
Mm,
that these people can be a complement to. And in those
wow.
ways,
That's
most
good.
times they people see me as and not I mean, you know, many times people don't know that they're actually doing me a lot of good, which is
Mm,
one of the reasons why I'm associating with them.
yeah.
I'll take a quick example. I mean, let's look at you, right, and how we built our relationship. I mean, there
Yeah.
was a time when we were just casual friends,
Mm,
and I would say faith brought us together in a very
yeah.
close manner. But again, the choice on whether to develop that relationship was left to both of us. And it was something that I said, you know what, now that I'm we at that time we were doing some work together. Now that I'm working with this person, I really want to see them and see what I can benefit and leverage, in my own life's journey. One of the things that struck me about you was your discipline in gathering knowledge, your intentionality in gathering knowledge. The way I would see with books, you would read those books and literally you would write a synopsis, a deep, detailed one. You always had another notebook, a big notebook where the books you read, you would summarize them in there. And I said, wow, this is powerful. This is somebody I really I want to learn this same level of discipline, with gathering knowledge. The other thing I think, that struck me with you was your emotional maturity. It may not be something you see, but your ability to be calm even in the face of adverse, I'd say challenging scenarios, or and I'm talking about maybe you're relating with someone else and they do something, but you're always able to generally maintain that level of calm. And I said again, this is something I want to covet for myself, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to I want to get close to this person. So that intentionality, I think, is what may differentiate me in some shape or form from other people, because I'm always intentional about the relationships that I cultivate in life.
Man, that is huge. Everything you just said there. Man, we could stop this whole conversation right there with just that one piece you shared. Because at the end of the day, if, like you said, if the relationships you have are not making you better, then really they are not good for you. And I mean, just hearing you say the things you said, I appreciate them. And like you said, many times we are not aware of what other people bring into our lives. But I mean, my time, spending time with you and really just developing our relationship, there are so many things I learned from you. And, and we all have different personalities and approaches to life. And I think that's something good that my viewers, you guys can kind of understand that everybody have different personalities. And, we have friends and we have people who come into our life who bring something else that is really beneficial to us. But the thing is being able to identify it. And like Damia said, really being intentional about what we want from those people in our relationships. So Dami, kind of walk us through, if they were to be given like steps to intentionality when we talk about friendships, because one of the reasons why social relationships is one of the major pillars that we're focusing on in this series is because of even life expectancy is increased when people have these kind of relationships in their life. I mean, it makes a lot of difference building this kind of relationships. I've heard of people commit suicide, people wanting to give up, people having depression, all kinds of things because they lack this kind of relationships. People wanting to really do better in their lives, but because they haven't built such relationships, there's nowhere to fall back on. So they end up going into situations that really are not the best for them. If you were to give us like some, and I know it's kind of difficult to give steps but really just to really break this down to bite size, when you say you are intentional about your friendships, how do you kind of approach them? How do you go about them?
Yeah. Let me start by sort of building on something that you just said with regards to the value of friendships. The role that they play in our lives. Starting out, I said, friendships can make or mar you in your life's journey, and that's the truth that I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will identify with. But another thing is, poor quality social support. To your point, it's actually it's the way it's been framed is that it's the mortality risk equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes on a daily basis. So that means if you don't have good relationships or you have very poor relationships, it's almost as equivalent to you, taking 15 cigarettes which contain nicotine, which are, which obviously are harmful to our health. And good friendships, they nourish our immune system, right? They
Right.
improve our prognosis with various health conditions. They actually lower blood pressure as well.
Yeah.
And emotionally, it's through research, it's been said that, they help to reduce our risk of disorders and,
Yeah.
of disorders from depression and PTSD, which is
Yeah.
traumatic stress disorders. So that is, how important friendships are,
Mm.
in our lives. In terms of, what are the key things, in the, how can we distill this into sort of like an algorithm or a model? I'm not sure there's an actual science behind it, but I'll just try
Right.
to sort of, bring things together. I think there's a very common proverb that says that, um, to find friends, I'm going to summarize it that way, you must be friendly, right? To find friends, we
Mm.
must be friendly. And I think that's always the first step.
That's
If
good.
sometimes, if our dispositions are not open to building relationships,
Mm.
people read those social cues from us. And so they are very reluctant as well to engage.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is really about, um, have putting not I say putting forward, your best self,
Yeah.
to people as well, right? Don't just show up with a poor self. Show up with your best self, when you meet
Yeah.
with people. The reality is, to build a connection, there must be a level of openness. That's the
Mm.
reality. So, we
Yeah.
have to be open in order to build a relation, in order to connect with other people.
Right. Right.
We can't be closed doors. I would say, another thing is, to look for areas of what I call intersectionality,
Mm.
in between you and other people, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no point. I was just thinking about it before this started. If I'm headed to Texas, there's no reason why I should get
Yeah.
on a Greyhound that's with someone else who's going to New York, right? We're just not gonna.
Right.
It's just not going to work, right? Because we're going to end up in
Yeah.
completely different destinations. Now, I have to be cautious about that. This is not about the fact that, I mean, you may have a friend who wants to be a lawyer and you want to be a pilot. Those are two different things entirely. It doesn't
Mm.
prevent you from being friends, right? I mean, the only challenge there would be the fact that if your friend is flying many times, you may not always be in touch as you want to. But this is talking
Right.
about values. What are the core things that are important to you? Sort of
Yeah.
like, respect for people, respect for
Yeah.
other people's opinions,
Yeah.
you know, being trustworthy. That's
Yeah.
also something. You want someone who's trustworthy. Perhaps you want someone who is committed or intentional,
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So we have to choose friends. So that would be, choosing people with similar values as we have. Um, and
That's good.
another thing would be, looking for people who can bring balance in areas where you and I are weaker. Each individual we compose of strengths and weaknesses. And,
Yeah.
where you find out that, this might be an area of strength for you. So I know I mentioned the fact that I'm exploitative when I
Yeah.
started, but as I grew older, I realized that, my focus became symbiosis, to be
Mm.
symbiotic, which is to
Yeah.
ensure that my friend is benefiting from that relationship and I'm also benefiting from that relationship.
Yeah.
So, and that is where the complement of both strengths and weaknesses come together, right? Because so we need to look for people who would complement us. So while we may look at life from the same lens or with similar values, but we also all bring different things to the table, and that informs
Right.
what I said about you at the beginning. We share a lot of similar values, but you also had a lot of strengths that were not necessarily my own strengths, and there were things that I intentionally wanted to benefit from. So I would say those are kind of, there was something else I was going to mention, about, and I think it's very important. I'm just trying to run through it on my mind. It came through just now, and I lost it. Um, so It's yes. The last thing is, I mean, not last, just one of the key things is, look for people who can hold you accountable.
That's good.
People who can speak in quotes, truth to power, to your power.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, we have such powerful personalities that may intimidate many people. And it
That's
may
good.
result in us developing friendships where people can't necessarily. I don't want a friend who cannot speak into my life when, I'm
Right.
veering off course. I want people who can help me course correct. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm always very cautious of that. I always say when you're building a friendship, find people who if you need to be held accountable, they'll call you out and tell you, right? They'll call you
Yeah.
out. They know where to do that. They're not going to do it in public, but they will call you out and tell you, you
Yeah.
know what, you missed the mark. This is not
Yeah.
you. This is, you're better than this, and you need to do better than this. And I think
Yeah.
that really makes you a better person. So really, the goal is really making you and I a better person. So if I would say, I'd say first thing is show yourself friendly, be open.
Yeah.
Secondly, look for people that you have common values.
Yes.
The third would be to look for people who can enhance your life experience in terms of strengths and to complement your own weaknesses. And fourthly would be to look for people who can actually hold you and I accountable, and as such
So
build
good.
a better version of who you are.
So good. So good. So good, Damien. Man, this is good stuff. I'm going to hit you with this question right away. Now,
Mm.
having heard all the things you've said, why do you think men especially struggle with this kind of relationship and friendships? Now, knowing well all these different things you've mentioned, being able to find someone that you can really more or less build with, someone you can be accountable for, someone that can be there for you. Why is it that men still struggle with this kind of relationships?
Hmm. There are a number of reasons why. The first one, the primary one, I think, is that we need to recognize the fact that it is easier to make friends in our formative years than
Mm,
as adults.
mm,
The simplicity of childhood, it is in itself a big advantage that many of sometimes we don't recognize for what it is.
yeah,
Because our lives are a lot less cluttered when we are younger. And one of the reasons is also because we typically journey through the same life seasons. So
mm,
you're both in elementary school, and then you both get into middle school. You're both in, so then you're all thinking about high school, and then you get into high
right,
school together, and then you're all both thinking about college, together. At that point, you are very, very aligned in life. As
yeah,
we grow older, though, those things go out of sync. Because, for example, you could get married and I may not get married. You could end up,
right,
doing going for a higher degree, which consumes your time. I was talking to
yeah,
someone today, and he was saying, a friend of his said he wouldn't get married until he had a PhD, and while I'm already working. And so and someone who's doing a PhD, which is very intensive, there's no way. It's hard, it's a big
yeah,
draw on their life, and they're there for 4 to 7 years. So
yeah,
that then happens, and someone else has kids, someone else doesn't have kids, someone unfortunately may get divorced, and somebody else is still with their family. And so those
yeah,
things begin to change the dynamic of how,
right,
around the ease of building relationships, right?
yes,
Because relationships are typically formed around common interests. But
yeah,
if unfortunately my friend is separated and I am still with my family, it could sort of create, a bit of a gap, because I'm
yeah,
still drawn to a lot of things where they may have either more time, or they're even dealing with issues of grief and separation. So that is
mm,
one of the key reasons we need to understand why it may be difficult. Now, this is more across both male and female, but
mm,
it's important to recognize that. The second thing, and the key thing, I think, where we're really hitting the sweet spot, is that
yeah,
a primary difference between men and women is that women, and I hope much respect to the female our
Right.
our female counterparts. I say
Yeah.
with a lot of respect. I have grown up around women, and I do hope in some way or form of I'm able to sort of shed some light in what I've seen. It's not necessarily the gospel, but this is
Right.
just my perspective.
Yeah.
With women, the friendship issues are more along the lines of loyalty. So
Mm.
typically you find out that women, the big peeve for them is, about their friends being loyal to them. You don't talk
Mm.
behind my back, you have
Right.
my
Right.
back. You have my back, you stick up for me, right? That's really the big thing for them when it's that's a make or break for women. You got to be loyal to me. I don't want you gossiping about me. I don't want you talking behind my back. Whereas for men, the biggest issue with friendship is vulnerability.
Wow. That's good.
Men struggle to be vulnerable,
That's good.
many men. And
Yeah.
that's one of the key drawbacks in trying to build relationships because, there's a center of power that works with men. It's just, there's there's the Superman macho concept
Egos. Egos too.
and the ego, exactly, the ego.
Mm.
And to struggle, to be vulnerable seems to us to be giving control to someone else,
Mm.
right? So I always want to be in the driving wheel of my life, right? I gotta make my own decisions. I gotta be who I am.
Yeah.
And I think you talk about me at the beginning. I don't think I'm special in that way. I'll tell you. I think one of the biggest things is the fact that I am I am attuned or comfortable with being vulnerable.
Mm. That's huge, man. That's huge. And I can attest to that. That's real. I've seen that in you. Yes.
So
Yeah.
so that's really the key. I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with being vulnerable, and it could be maybe because of certain experiences I've had in life. Some of the
Yeah.
environments I had to navigate or grew up with. But it is, I think, one of the key issues that I've seen men struggle with. When you engage with men, other than sizing up, men sizing up men, the key
Hmm.
thing
Hmm.
about it is, I'm not going to break how do I call it? It's like we wear an armor and I don't want anybody to
Yeah.
get into that armor, to see
Right.
the inside of me. And like I
Mm.
said at the beginning, if you're going to to build friends, there has to be a connection which is based
Yeah.
on an openness,
Yeah.
right? Because if you only say, and friendships are progressive, but if you're not comfortable with opening the door, it's going to be hard for people to step in to your
Yeah.
universe and
Yeah.
build a meaningful relationship with you. And so that's why a lot of male friendships are seated at the door of superficiality. They're
Mm.
very superficial. Hey man, how you doing? What's up? And that's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't get
Right.
past that. It does. Yeah,
Right.
how was the game yesterday? Yeah, it was good. Did you watch the?
Or
But
you
they
talk about
never.
sports.
That's it.
You
You
talk
just
about sports
avoid. You
enough.
talk about every other thing that you can sort of like use to deflect from the real issues, right? From opening up that door of vulnerability. So we skip it around. We talk about
Yeah.
sports, a lot. We talk about the weather. We may even talk about the
Yeah.
kid. The kid was at a game last night. I was there, coach. But you never open
Yeah.
the door into your sanctuary. And so that's one of the key things and if I would encourage men in terms of really building relationships, and I see that in many arenas, even in spiritual environments in church, you still
Yeah.
see men struggle. They just
Yeah.
can't let that armor open up, right?
Yeah.
But what it does, and maybe I look at it from the demerit, is the fact that we then struggle alone,
Mm. Wow.
struggle in isolation.
Woo.
We
That
struggle
is
in
so good.
isolation, and even Superman needs friends, on some days, sometimes he does need friends.
Sorry to stop you, Dami. I remember, I don't know who was saying this, that gone are the days of Rambo. This one guy who is able to take the whole city, who is able to solve all the problems. Gone are those days,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah.
So Superman needs friends, right? And the truth about it is beyond all that still exterior, men go through challenges. We
That's
go
real.
through challenges with identity, we go through
Yeah.
challenges with relationships,
Yeah.
we hurt. We go through challenges of loss, right?
Yeah.
Pain. And
Yeah.
who can you turn to? Who can you talked about the fact that people end up with, other than even severe depression or mental health issues,
Yeah.
they actually end up
Yeah.
to at the terminal point of people actually taking their lives,
Yeah.
because the reason is because there's a sense of hopelessness, a sense that
Yeah. Woo.
nobody understands me, nobody feels me, nobody recognizes what I'm going through.
Mm.
I'm all alone, and in a desperate, desolate place.
Yeah.
And it's something that I can understand, maybe not fully appreciate, but understand.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like that. Friendship should
Mm.
bridge that for us. You got to be able to have a friend, that you can go knock on their door, and say, you know what, I'm at the end of myself. There's no
Mm.
man left in me, right? I'm a kid. I'm a baby right now, right?
Right.
I need help. And that's something men struggle with, being able to say to another man, I need
I
your
need help.
help. I need
Yeah.
help and I need your help,
Yeah.
right? And we live in a fast-paced society,
Yeah.
where it's just like moving trains. The trains don't stop, they just keep going. It's like riding the
Yeah.
subway, they just keep going. So
Yeah.
you're going through all of this, getting slammed on all sides, but nobody's stopping you don't
Hmm.
have anyone to stop, to kind of get their attention, just to be able to give you, some of their attention, right?
Right. Right.
So it can be tough, yeah. So
Man, Danny,
that's yeah.
you have said so much today, so much. But we're just going to turn the tides a little bit, and we're just going to talk a little bit. We want to talk a little bit about. I know you mentioned something about, because I had another series I actually was doing. There's still one more I believe that I'm going to do on life and business, and I wanted to talk just for a moment with you on your journey with careers, because you're a career person also, and see if there are any tools or any experiences that you can share with us that will really help us. And some of my viewers are young, so I was really hoping they would be able to pick up one or two things from you. But also, if you want to kind of weave together some of your business ventures that you talked about, things you've learned, for people who want to have a startup, for example, you can weave that into discussions with career. So, just in a nutshell, give my viewers just a little bit of your journey, as we talk about careers and you talked about business ventures also.
Okay. It's quite some timeline, but I'll just try and bring it back.
Yeah.
I ended up studying accounting or
Yeah.
accountancy in college, which you are aware of.
Yeah.
The honest truth, though, is the only thing I ever wanted to do in my life was fly. I wanted to be a pilot from when I was a kid.
Mm.
But being an only son, and with my mom having so much influence in my life,
Yeah.
um, she said she would have none of it. And
Yeah.
so that kind of ended
Well,
up with
a lot of
me.
mothers would do.
Yeah. I would always say to her when I was a kid, I'd say, Mom, how would you feel, when the plane goes overhead? I was like, wouldn't it be great? Like, wouldn't you feel great when you see the plane going over, you think like my son is the
And
one
that's
in there?
my son in there.
And my mom
Yeah.
would say, no, never. He would freak. Paraphrasing, no, that would freak me out. I never want. So I ended up studying accounting, and for a long time I struggled with it. I really did, because I didn't have any passion in that area. I didn't. So it was not something I identified with. But I would say, God and faith,
Yeah.
have, sort of they intervened in
Mm.
crystallizing that journey for me. I do
Mm.
remember having one experience in college where, I had a definitive voice saying to me that, you have to be faithful in little things. And,
Mm.
and I'm paraphrasing, and that meant that, whatever I'm doing right now, which was studying accounting, You have to
Yeah.
be faithful in it. You can't continue griping about it. You have to. So long story short, I ended up from college with a degree in accounting.
Yeah.
I started working in the. We have a military service in Nigeria where I am from. So I ended up doing that 1 year community service, military service. It was initially very rough and challenging, and some of that journey because I ended up in
Yeah.
a city state where I knew nobody. But I ended up eventually in a multinational oil and gas company.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we did an aptitude test and I came up tops out of everybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, not me. I'm not great at this stuff. So
Yeah.
but I ended up in the organization. And after my 1 year, I was rated very highly and offered a contract. So when I started with a contract, and I ended up, then I became a full-time employee there. And I rose through different roles and opportunities till I was identified as what is called in the parlance in that environment a high potential employee, which then ended up with me being first seconded to a project in Italy, in Milan, which is very funny. I won't go there right now, but there's a lot of funny stories for your audience. And from there, I ended up in being transferred to headquarters for Europe and Africa, which was in Paris, France, where I was there for 4 years. And from there,
you were in Aberdeen too, right?
Yes, and I was now from France. I was transferred. We went to Aberdeen in Scotland to be the regional controller for the largest business unit there, which was very pivotal as well and iconic in that nature. And then from there, we'd had a little bit too much travel in such a short time. It was because you kept moving countries, and it was difficult for my wife to sort of build her career. So we eventually decided to emigrate to Canada, and that's how I ended up here. It was hard at the beginning to also, because we came in the middle of the recession in 2008, and I'd lost a ton of money on the equity market at that point in time, and so we had to build from ground up. Long story short, though, after about 2 years, I got my first professional opportunity. Again, back in the arena of finance. Interestingly, though, when I came into Canada, my whole ambition was to go entrepreneurial, and start my own janitorial cleaning service. That was my intention. So I bought a truck. I did. We incorporated the company, business cards, everything, flyers, and then the motor license agency here went on strike for 6 months. And so I could not get my license. So I had a car I was paying insurance on, but I couldn't drive it because I couldn't convert my license. So eventually I had to abandon that, so then I ended up in working back in corporate again, work for a communications company like Verizon. So I did that. And from there, again, I got bored because with the company I worked for, which was called Schlumberger, and they're represented in over 80 countries in the world. It's a very high intense, they're in Texas there as well. It was very high intense environment, and it's a sink or swim, not in the sense that they are it's very friendly environment, but you have to be able to deliver. They'll empower you to all the tools, so you've got to be able to deliver. So I got bored working here because I found out I was doing jobs where I could literally close my eyes and just, press the button and everything was working. So I started toying around with business ideas in my mind again. And eventually, I'll just summarize it this way. It led me into signing a commercial license agreement with a biotechnology company here. To advance and commercialize what is a rapid point of care test. So these are near bedside tests. So you think about a home pregnancy test kit type of format, where that could really was a game changer in critical emergency situations for cardiac emergencies. So And so I did that, took that. So I got the license agreement with a friend of mine, brought him in. He flew in from Nigeria because he was in pharma. So, brought him in. We signed the license agreement. And then eventually I was able to take it through the FDA type registration in Nigeria, because my goal was really, there's a lot of needless fatal cardiac emergencies in that environment. And there are
Right.
a lot of systemic issues that also prevent medical professionals from being able to deliver the best care,
Right. Services.
life-saving care at that point in time. So this was a game changer, because it sort of overcame a lot of the systemic issues. It's a point of care test. A doctor can use it right in the doctor's room there and
Right.
then,
Mhm.
while meeting the patient. It doesn't require power.
Right.
It doesn't require a batch process that typical laboratory tests will go through. And it also promotes evidence-based diagnosis, which was a
Yeah.
key limitation and factor why people die from heart attacks,
Yeah.
why heart attack emergencies can be fatal in that environment. So got the
Yeah.
approval and then moved back alone at that point to Nigeria and started pushing that across. So it was started with cold calls. My first hospital, I remember that. And we eventually, within Lagos State, which is the largest state in Nigeria, and commercial nerve base, so very similar to New York or Toronto or
Right.
London. We were in the top tier hospitals. We broke
Yeah.
through and we were there.
Yeah.
Now you ask me, how did I, achieve that? I mean, the first thing I had to do, because it was completely foreign field to me, I started reading medical journals, a lot
Mhm.
of medical journals, to understand the
Yeah.
subject matter, because I
Right.
knew I was going to be dealing with medical professionals, and there was
Exactly.
no way I would be able to speak at their level if I didn't
Mhm.
understand, the
Mhm.
physiology of heart attacks
Yeah.
itself.
That's
So,
right.
so beyond passion, there's always the need for discipline with any venture or any idea.
Mm.
You have to be disciplined. You have to acquire knowledge. You have to be intentional and deliberate about gathering that knowledge. I believe that Tolu was on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
platform talking about business, and I do
Right.
recall that, one of the things he was talking about was that, it came innately for him to be in fashion. But then, what was it? No, it was in he was in
He was selling
communication,
mobile phones.
mobile phones. But
Yeah.
he did now look at the fact that, one, the clothing was something that has been identified as
Yeah.
he didn't fully recognize as a passion, but people had seen it in him. And so,
Right.
yes, you should play to your strengths, which is your fashion. But then he also began to see the move between, I'm spending this much on communications, this is what I'm getting. But when I do this in fashion, this is what I'm getting. So I believe he started to study his customers, started to, those were some of the things he was talking about, to understand what their needs were. So there's always need to add knowledge and to be disciplined about getting knowledge. In that arena, passion is not good enough to succeed in business. You have to add knowledge to that.
Mm.
I don't know if we've, so moved down there and we got into all the top tier hospitals, including the regional government now approving the test to be used in all the public healthcare systems. So, however, because I have a family and my family was here, it was a bit of a challenge to sort of navigate that, because initially I was out there 6 months and then came back. And then I started to rotate and do 2 months on ground over there and then 1 month
Yeah.
here. But all the
Yeah.
time that I would be here, because I was against the time zone, I would typically be on the phone when I'm here. So my family wasn't even getting the best of me. And so it became very
Right.
challenging. And at some
Right.
point, I knew I had to, and it was actually at the point of inflection where things were going to change, but I had to leave it and come back, here.
That means speak to us a little bit about that, because a lot of people go through those kind of transitionary times where certain decisions like that have to be made in priority, because this is your business, this is your baby, but then this is your family on this side. So how do people handle situations like that? Or I mean, what did you do in that situation?
There's never an easy answer, right? There's never an easy solution, right? And it's always usually, it's a bed of compromise of some sorts. It's always a
Yeah.
bed of compromise, because I mean, to your point, this is your baby, this is your dream, this is your vision. And
Yeah.
tearing you away from that baby is literally like tearing you away from a child that you love.
Yeah.
So it can be very nerve-wracking in that regard. And so, you know, when you find yourself in that situation, you obviously have to look for the first thing has to be, you know, what do you consider higher priority? And those were the questions I had to ask myself. Was it more important to be a successful business person in this area? Or was it more important to build and keep my family together and build a wholesome relationship with my kids and spouse? And it wasn't still easy. These were long nights of, you know, because I knew I had to leave everything. And eventually, when I did make that call, because, you know, in the order of priority, I saw that, you know, I mean, what's the point? You make all the money, but you're all alone. And I'm talking about the fact that, the kids could be there, but there's no connection. And I've seen it. I mean, there's the story, you know, I've seen it. There's, you know, there's no connection, you know, there's no emotional connection. And they'll literally remind you, especially children in the Western Hemisphere will remind you and say, you know what, you weren't there for me. You were paying the bill. You were paying the bills though. You were paying the bills, but you were not there as far as they're concerned. So for them, it's more about the emotional connection and of your presence around their lives rather than you just being a facilitator. So you may have sent them to the best schools, to Harvard, to Yale, whatever, Stanford. But because what they really wanted was a relationship with you, you know, you sort of, it's, you know, you lose out in that sense. So my compromise in this situation was that I came here, and for 6 months, all I did was take my wife to the station to get on the train and take my kids to school. But along the same lines, I had an employee. Yeah, I had an employee on ground locally. And so the employee was, was responsible for continuing to service our customer base. Now it was tough. I had a lot of electronic support because, you know, we had an email address, an account. So all the emails, the requests from the customers would come straight to me. I could look at it on my phone. I could look at it on my computer. And so I would literally respond, similar to when I was rotating, I would be there 2 months, be here 1 month and 2 months over there. And then I could also call the clients, even though it may have me waking up early. Now, the key point that I want to get to here is I ran that model for about 3 years after that, you know, with the employee on ground. And I went through a number of employees, though, because once you're not, remember, this was a fledgling or you know, it was a very young venture, right, that we were just setting off the ground. And without leadership, which is core, leadership being your leadership presence, very, very hard. So while I had all the controls to prevent, you know, any malfeasance or anything from happening, not being there to provide that physical presence, right, sort of was a limitation. So the first thing that happened was that my employees, you know, you know, they did the minimum that they needed to do. Because we had an attractive base with commissions on top, they were very fine with the base, and they just did the minimum in terms of customer calls, you know, follow-ups and all of that. And then so the second thing was
you're the one that will be thinking about growth.
Yes.
They're not thinking about growth or expansion.
So the second thing is, from a business development standpoint, we could not grow. We could maintain the existing customer base, but we could not scale that customer base. So I was only primarily catering to all of our existing clientele. And that was the biggest limitation. So I kept that up, and they would continue coming to us and asking, you know, and so I would just, and because the manufacturer was here in Toronto, I would continue coordinating to have the shipments get on ground. Now, when we ran into logistic issues with customs or with the courier companies, that was also tough because I was here. I couldn't just show up at the airport And if I send someone, they may not necessarily have the level of expertise or knowledge or much to deal with those issues. So those were some of the things we faced. So my trade-off was to come back here, be primary with the family, and then manage that. And even when when I started working again in corporate here, I kept it up and continued to maintain it until we had to eventually shut it down. The reason why was purely because we had foreign exchange exposures, where the local currency, where the US dollar, which is primarily what our cost is denominated in, moved significantly against the local currency. And so there was a lot of price inflation in our pricing, which we couldn't necessarily recover from the customers. So at that point, I had customers who were asking for products, but I said to them, we can't, this is a loss for us. We can't continue to, it's a loss. So I hope that helps.
No, man, Dami, this has been explosive, man. If I was to put in a word, this has really been explosive. And I'm really, really hoping out there that as this stream will go out, a lot of people will really benefit from all what my guest, my friend Dami, has been talking about. He has really talked extensively in terms of friendship, and has talked extensively in careers and really starting up businesses, And a lot of people talk about, I want to own my business. I want to own my business. But there's work to do. There's a lot of learning involved. There's a lot of intentionality to really get to a place where you are really specific and you know your craft and you develop your craft and you grow it. And, it takes more than you doing it by yourself, which kind of lends itself also to the friendship aspect, where you need to sometimes connect or collaborate with good people that that, like Damia said, who really have those similar values and those similar desires to really bring something of meaning out. This has really been good. Dami, do you have any final comments today? This has really been good today.
My biggest thing about me is, when I self-introspect, is that I'm a dreamer. I'm a dreamer. I love to believe in the art of the possible. What is not yet but can be. And it's also been it's been the fabric of my life's journey, right? Being able to defy, and for many people as well in different ways, being able to defy the odds and bring into reality what is so far-fetched. So I will say to people, never give up on yourself. Life is a journey. Don't check yourself out of the ring. Everybody else may check you out, but never ever check yourself out of the ring. As long as you're still breathing, there is still, glory before you. All things are possible as long as you're still here and you're not counting yourself out. So the ref may be counting you out, but the only person that truly, really matters, your opponent may be counting you out, but the person that really matters is you. If you don't count yourself out, then, you will eventually get to, the focus of your dreams and desire. Remember, though, as we said, that there is still intentionality about it. There is still a lot of grunt work about it, that needs to be done. And people may not appreciate that at that point in time. But but at the end of the day, you will see those results. So, if I go back to, any of the ventures I've been with that and more, recently this one, which was called Innova Healthcare Solutions. If I think about it, it was so far-fetched from me when I met that organization. Now, this is core science, biotech. We became the biggest distributor of their products. Prior to us, they had only been in Germany, and it was being used in research. We were the ones that opened their perspective to the possibility of being able to commercialize this and put it out there. So they were a research company. They developed products, but they didn't have a commercial arm.
Right, no market.
no market. So we did that and took it to market, and then eventually they got opened up in Brazil and other places. But we were the first people to ever break into and create a market around it. And, we still have customers who are asking for that product because it's a game changer. But what do I want to bring out of there? It's really the fact that, like I said, when I started, it was so far-fetched. Me who's got a finance background, being able to step into medical diagnostics, right, and being able to make a game changer, bring that all together. And we struggled through even financing, startup funds, seed funding, and all of that. But eventually we got to the point where we had financiers who had committed $50,000 a piece to the venture. They were willing to back it up with that. And this was after we had gone to market. We were down on ground locally, and we were now doing pitches to scale. So we went through full business plan reviews, executive summaries, and all of that. But we were able to. So when I sit down and think about it, from
nothing impossible
to to what finally became possible, I recognize the fact that the journey of 1,000 steps of 1,000 miles always starts with one step, but it has to be a continuous step. You never give up. So that's really my 10 cents to everyone, and I hope some of it has been helpful to the audience and the folks who will watch this.
I can assure you, it really is going to be helpful to a lot of people. Dami, give us some of your handles, so that in case people want to reach out. Now, viewers, you can also reach out, make comments on my page or my channel, but Dami, also give them your handles and let people kind of know if they want to get in touch with you, how they can do that.
Okay, so I mean, there are a lot of social media platforms, and I need to apologize in advance that I'm not necessarily on top of all of them. Obviously, I use LinkedIn a lot. It's a professional platform. I've been on LinkedIn since 2005 or thereabouts. I think I did myself by saying that, but that's it. So my handle on LinkedIn is Damola Abiola. Just search Damola Abiola on LinkedIn. And you
mind spelling that for my viewers? Some of them
might not
be able to spell.
So it's D-A. I could actually spell it in military letters. My daughters always laugh at that because in oil and gas, that's what we use, military. But it's Damola, and then my last name is Abiola. That's Damola Abiola. So that's LinkedIn. Also, my email address, I think it's damola.abiola@gmail.com. Around the so if you wanted to see some of the stuff, so Innova, which we had, I think the website is still live. It's a bit dated now because it was built out in 2013, but it's www.innovahcs.com. That's Innova Healthcare Solutions that we built. And reset on Instagram, we during the onset of the Corona crisis, I played around with a mask company. So we built a mask. We started doing masks, and it's called Mask Tribe. I'm just trying to see if I can find it so I can sort of share. So it's mask MASK_tribe. And so that's some of the ways people can sort of connect. I think LinkedIn might probably be the easiest, or by email, but and when we're up with the next thing, I'm still playing around. I never stop playing around. I'm plagued by ideas, so that's always my biggest challenge. So when we do stand up the next thing, we will obviously come to you and your platform, Femi, to sort of push it up.
Man, it will be my pleasure to really do that. And we have, man, Dami, you really made my day today. This has really been good. It has really encouraged me, strengthened me myself, and just having this time with a genuine person, It's hard. It's kind of unfortunate that these days we don't have that many people who are really genuine anymore. But Dami, thank you so much for coming on
So much
Femi
for
Diaries today. It has been an awesome time. Viewers, you guys check this out, share it with your friends, like the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Take care, everyone. Bye.